Hey, what's up, guys? We're back here with the NFL Nerds podcast, week two. I'm Luke. I'm joined by Ilan today. And we will be covering the NFC West. Exciting division, lots of good teams, lots of young players here. Um,
The
we'll,
anti-NFC North.
yes, exactly. Some well-ran teams. Well, well-ran teams, I would argue. But that's at least one more than the NFC North has. So
That's true.
let's start off with arguably the best team, the best ran team in this division, the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. Their win total is currently set at 10 and a half. Now, Alon, what do you think? First, over under on the 10 and a half, and do you think this team has a shot of repeating?
Yeah, so I think 10.5 is actually kind of low. So I will go over. Their division got easier, I think. I think the Cardinals didn't get much better. The 49ers did get a little bit better, but the 49ers were good last year. Um, and the Seahawks obviously traded their top
Right.
10 quarterback away and are going to start Drew Lock. Um, so I think their division that those are at least 6 games that are kind of a little bit easier. They won what, like 12 games last year?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to check, actually. I think it was 12
Think
games.
it was they went 12-5. I think they go over. I think they're good. Stafford is good, and he's good, not great. The roster is probably still like one of the best in the NFL. They prioritize good positions. They have an overvalued linebacker. They have probably one of the worst. Like, I mean, people couldn't even name their starting middle linebackers. It's like Troy Reader and like I don't even know. And Bobby Wagner now actually, but last year
Yeah.
they did not have a good middle linebacking core, but they invest a lot of picks and Jalen Ramsey. Um, they struck gold with Aaron Donald. I don't know if Les Snead and company were there when they drafted Aaron Donald. I don't know, but that was one of the best picks in NFL history, getting him at 13, right before the Bears picked Kyle Fuller.
Yeah. I mean, I remember. Okay, yeah. So it was 2012 when he was the became the GM. So I guess he was there for the
Yeah.
Donald pick. Less need that is, but yeah. I mean, I really wanted Donald. I don't, and like, it sounds like a lie, but like in the draft, like I don't know why, but like I was 10 years old and I like saw this like defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh that everyone was like, this guy's really talented, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, the Bears always need a good pass rusher. Like, go get Aaron Donald. And when he went to the Rams, I was pretty upset, but he
One pick.
hasn't turned out to be that great, so it doesn't really matter. Um,
Dodged a bullet.
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm gonna go under on the Rams 10 and a half this year, but I I'm kind of iffy. I could see it going either way. I mean, I could see them at 10 wins for sure. I think 10 wins is maybe where I'd have them. Um, but I'm a little bit scared about Stafford's elbow, I think. Now I don't know if this is obviously we don't know much about it right now, but I'd have to imagine this will at least affect his first 3, 4 weeks of play,
Yeah.
maybe. Um, and if you're getting Stafford at like 70%, like it's gonna be a grind. It's gonna be a grind for
Let's keep
sure.
it golf.
Yes, yes. You basically have Goff at that point. Or maybe someone slightly worse than Kirk Cousins. Um, but I mean, McVay, he just got an extension. Obviously, he's one of the smartest play designers in the league. He'll be able. I don't think even if the Stafford injury is going to affect him for a while here. I don't think McVay will let the offense get stagnant. I think he'll be able to do some schematic things. Um, I mean, I really commend McVay for if nothing else, always being able to switch up and always being able to kind of admit when he's wrong.
Right.
And if the league has information on what you've been running the past couple of years, like go out, create a new scheme. Um, and yeah, I will say I'm pretty high on Allen Robinson. I was a huge fan of his with the Bears up until his
Yeah.
last season. That was last year was super weird for Allen Robinson. I feel like people have kind of started to pick up on it, but like coming into last season, I had him as like a top 6 or 7 wide receiver. I think most people would have been pretty crazy to leave him outside their top 10.
Well, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, he he's been a monster like for years and years, obviously. And I think last year he really did just kind of give up. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, give up. Nagy was really bad. Nagy, when he came in 2018 and 2019 and those years, he really found a way to use him with Mitch, like a good way, like using him as a deep threat, as like an outlet. Like Mitch is one of those quarterbacks where like if it goes wrong, like he's just gonna throw it up. And Allen Robinson is one of the best contested catch wide receivers in the NFL. It's something Stafford is big on too. Like he likes the jump ball. Fields is not like that. Like not at all. Like I mean, really contested catch wise, Allen Robinson didn't have many opportunities, but Allen Robinson still like very much underperformed last year. He stopped caring. He obviously was very upset with the contract negotiation and how that went. And it ended up probably costing him a lot of money. He signed for 15.75, I think, AAV with the Rams, and
Right,
I
because
don't know how much he was asking for from the Bears or how much they were offering, but um, it was probably a little bit north of that. But he finds himself in a better situation, better win now move. I don't know how much fits Fields' skill set. I think he is. It's an overrated type of narrative that like he totally doesn't fit with Fields because any elite wide receiver should fit with any good quarterback. But he's a really good. I hate to say it, I really don't like the guy. Like for the amount of lack of effort he showed last year, but he could play himself back into being a top 10 wide receiver. And for all of Cooper Kupp's years, Allen Robinson was definitely better than him up until last year. Like definitely, like no debate. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Allen Robinson can play himself into like a wide receiver one role, but that comes with trust, and Stafford and Kupp really have a lot of trust with each other. And I mean, like coming off the year he had last year, it's would probably be idiotic to say Allen Robinson could outplay him, but it's possible.
yeah, I mean, I think Cup's a really interesting case study. And I mean, I don't know how much Cup film you've watched, but I have not grinded the Cup tape much, but at least production
Mhm.
wise, I mean, he is like objectively coming off the greatest wide receiver season ever, which is crazy because like it's Cooper Cup. Like it's
Yeah.
like if you would have told anybody this last off season, they think you're insane. Like he, this isn't who he's been his entire career, but
Right.
then you break every record in the record book, and it becomes pretty hard to project you in the season moving forward because I mean, I don't think I'm being unfair when I say, guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase are far and away more talented. Devontae
Yeah,
Adams, like
100%.
I think those guys are just freaks of nature. They're open every single play. But you have to kind of think about Cup in that tier of guys production wise. So what kind of tier of receiver do you see Cup landing in next year?
It's so tough because we literally just talked about a wide receiver that was like top seven, and then probably for most people fell out like to like a low tier wide receiver one, like high end wide receiver two type player. The production is production, but in the NFL, production isn't as stable as talent is. And I mean, there's just a lot more wide receivers that are a lot more talented than him. People are gonna. I mean, it was his first year really where he had elite level production. Um, I think I think he's still going to stay in like a top 10 wide receiver tier. I don't think he's a top three wide receiver. I don't think he's a top five wide receiver. I mean, I still think Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, I still think those guys, I would still rather take them on my team than Cooper Cup. So I don't know, maybe like not like the highest end of wide receiver one, but he is a wide receiver one for sure. Probably like wide receiver 10 area. I think he'll finish this year. But McVay is like also one of the best play callers in the league, and that doesn't get talked about enough. Also, of how open he gets Cooper Cup, and how Stafford is really eyeing on those reads, when he is just wide open.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It's McVay, Stafford, and Cup. It's just like a match made in heaven. I feel like
It
it's
is. It
when
is.
you get when you get three minds like that, like they're gonna make Cooper Cup look like the best receiver of all time,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
it tricks you because you then have to think about how much of this is sustainable, how much of this is him, because if I saw Justin Jefferson break every single yardage and touchdown record with Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell, I'd be a little bit more inclined to put him wide receiver one instantly.
Yeah.
Um,
Which he
So,
is.
yeah,
Justin
uh,
Jefferson is wide receiver one.
yes, yeah, I think we're definitely in agreement there.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, that guy's ridiculous. Okay, so you know, after the Super Bowl last season, one thing that kind of all right, I'm not gonna lie, the Rams winning the Super Bowl last year was kind of bad for my narratives. I was a big Stafford and Cousins are the same quarterback guy last year. And I didn't love what they were doing, but I think they did a really good job at recognizing that the NFL was weak last year and that they could win the Super Bowl. I think if you put this Rams team against like I don't know the 2020 Packers or the 2020 Bucks or the 2020 Chiefs, I'd have a lot harder time. I have a much more difficult time believing they're going to beat them in the playoffs.
Right.
And I think credit to the Rams for being able to look and be like, look, we're right there with these guys. All these guys are pretty beat up this year. We can go get Von Miller and we can go win a Super Bowl, and they did it. Um, so credit where credit is due. But I think one thing that really upset me was not really upset me, but I just kind of found funny was after they won the Super Bowl, Les Snead was parading the like, trade all your first mentality. Um, and who cares about the picks? He wore the t-shirt. Um, and I was just like, this is so weird for an NFL GM to be preaching this when like literally any other smart GM over the past 30 years has like recognized that picks are way more valuable than whatever you think they're worth. And you should probably be trading back to get as much draft capital as possible. Not trading your first for star players. Um, but I do largely disagree with the, trade all your first mentality. Now, if you're like the Rams and picking like 25, 27 every year, I think you have more of a reason to get rid of your first. There's not going to be as much high end talent back there. And there's you don't have as much need for a first round pick as a team like the Commanders, let's say, or the Lions, who, they're going to be looking to get a quarterback.
Right.
Um, but with Les Snead, he's also made some pretty bad picks, I feel like, with Van Jefferson last year. And like it's just there's kind of a mismanagement of draft capital, I think, just the entire process. So I largely take a side against Les Snead and his draft philosophy. What are your thoughts on what he does?
Yeah, no, I agree for the most part. I really think like, I mean, everything they did is just like Jalen Ramsey is worth your two first round picks. Awesome. Okay. I'm a big believer that if you don't have a top level quarterback, it's almost impossible to sustain elite level play like from your team, like to win a Super Bowl. So I could see the Rams kind of regressing this year. But when you trade your so many first round picks and you can't draft and you're drafting Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell in the second round and overdrafting all these guys, it's like no other team is going to have the success. Like Les Snead is really lucky that he struck gold with Aaron Donald, and that he struck gold with one of the best coaches in the league in Sean McVay. Because without Sean McVay, they don't win the Super Bowl. If they play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, they don't win the Super Bowl. A lot of things needed to fall their way, and credit to them, like they did it and they won, and they still have a great roster, and they probably they had the highest PFF WAR
Yeah,
non-quarterback wise in NFL history.
yeah,
That's the roster that they built. But I think it was through a lot of luck as opposed to like actual understanding of the NFL and how it works. Because getting Aaron Donald in the draft with how big of a crapshoot the draft is, and having him be like the most valuable or of amongst the most valuable non-quarterbacks ever is, I think, a lucky thing. I mean, he deserves credit for sure. That's great scouting. That's a great pick, but nobody expected him to turn into that. And Cooper Cup, like if they don't have that crazy season from him that nobody expected, uh, again, they're not winning the Super Bowl. So a lot of things needed to go their way. I don't think it would work for a single other team. We touched on it kind of last week when we were talking about the Vikings, I think. But yeah, not a single other team. It wouldn't work for anybody else. Uh, a lot of things needed to go their way. I think it's really dumb. I hope Ryan Poles does not think the same way. But the only way that it would ever make sense to me is if you have a quarterback like Justin Fields, and you're trying to get him a wide receiver one. At that point, you can trade picks, and I'll be okay with it, or a left tackle. Get him some help. But other than that,
Yeah.
trading for so many defenders and having whatever it is, 7 straight years without a first round pick or whatever stupid stat it is, like that's insane. Like that is nuts.
Yeah.
And you just pay your quarterback. He's making 40 mil now. Like you got to keep paying these guys more and more money. And I don't know, their O line's not very good this year. Whitworth is gone. He retired. I think Joe Noteboom, who was their backup left tackle, who they just paid, is taking over. Uh, I don't know. You could see some regression from them. You're making me doubt my over 10.5 now, but I still think they can sneak by 11.
Yeah. I mean, you made me say two things that I think, or you made me think, or you said two things that I think are very important to touch on. The first, the PFF war outside of quarterbacks. Like, it doesn't necessarily prove, but it somewhat proves that the Rams really did have the best supporting cast ever last year.
Right.
And that, maybe everyone should chill out on the Stafford praise. Just kidding. But
They should.
they, I mean, the team, like, the roster was ridiculous outside of quarterback. And I think everybody knows this, but like, Ramsey, Donald, Cup, like, I mean, and you have to keep in mind, like you said, this is Cup playing as the best receiver ever. Like, you basically have like a 95th percentile war player at like the three most, I mean, 99th. Like Aaron
Yeah,
Donald is the best, is the best interior
he's
defensive
the
line
best.
ever. Yeah, Cooper Cup's playing like the best receiver ever, and Ramsey, I mean, he's one of the better corners ever at this point in time.
Right.
Um, but I mean, even other than that, they're deep. They make it work. And also it just this Rams team makes me reminds me, and I should remind everyone that not always the best team nor the best organization wins the Super Bowl. Um, the I don't think last year's Rams were the best team in the league, unfortunately.
No, they're
I
not.
still do think, yeah, I think a Chiefs team fully clicking is better than this Rams team from last year. I mean, I think the Packers from last year are better than the Rams
100%.
from
Packers
last
were
year.
1,000% better, but every single year Aaron Rodgers decides to have the worst game of his life against the 49ers in the playoffs.
And yeah, I love it. Like it's the highlight of my
Yeah,
year.
it is my
But
Super Bowl.
but the negative part of that is there are people who think because Aaron Rodgers is either the second or third best quarterback in the league and he's not winning a Super Bowl, he's not the best second or third best quarterback in the league. And Stafford is, I mean, I don't think anybody's arguing Stafford is just as good as Rodgers. I should take that back. But, people like to make really crazy claims after playoff games. And you have to keep in mind these are one game samples. And one game samples in the NFL are usually pretty telling, but they're only telling. They're not definitive.
Right.
They're not showing you who the better team is.
Jared Goff was a one-game sample away from taking a worse Rams team to as the Super Bowl champions. So,
Yes, exactly. Quarterback of the Detroit Lions, who, if you have not watched Hard Knocks yet, I really recommend. That team it should be fun. Moving on to another fun team with a coach just as entertaining as Dan Campbell, the 49ers. Um, so obviously the 49ers, the storyline is Trey Lance. Um, and what to expect. Um, I mean, this kind of goes into their over under, but what do you think? 10? 10 is where it's
I think
sitting.
they go under. I mean, I don't think Trey Lance is very good.
Hmm.
Shanahan. I will say this. I think he's a really good play caller. I think he's overrated a good amount as a coach. I don't think he's a great
Yeah.
coach. I don't think he's had. I mean, Jimmy G's not good, and he's elevated Jimmy G higher than many can. But situationally, like he's proven time and time again in big moments, like he doesn't know what to do. Like I mean, when they were playing the Cowboys, 4th and 1, they're just gonna run like HB blast, like whatever, some simple like Madden play. And he sends Trent Williams in motion to be the
Yeah.
play right tackle, and boom, 5 yard penalty. You have to punt now instead of putting the game away. It's like he overthinks everything. I think he's gonna put Trey Lance in a pretty good situation to succeed. But their system, Kyle Shanahan has always had quarterbacks that are quick fire, get the ball out quick, and let the playmakers do their thing. Like with Debo, Jimmy
Yeah.
G, Matt Ryan, even Nick Mullins when he started, and CJ Beathard, like those types. He's never had anybody near Trey Lance. Like not
Yeah.
a quarterback that's anything similar to him. Trey Lance hasn't been good in training camp. He actually was pretty solid in preseason, but he's playing against the Packers, like second and third team corners. It's like they're a bigger wild card than people want to give them credit, because I mean I've never seen Shanahan do anything with a quarterback like Lance, who's athletic, who can run. Like I mean the two games he played last year, like Shanahan used him as like a running back, like 21 carries or something like that against the Cardinals, like something nuts like that. But if he reaches his ceiling, I mean, really good. I mean, he's
Yeah.
really talented. The legs are top tier. I just don't think the accuracy, and I think his motion is really inefficient. I don't think the accuracy will ever get him to a point where he can reach anything higher than maybe his like 50th or 60th percentile. So
Yeah. All right. I mean, that's pretty convincing. This is one I've been struggling with. I've been going back and forth because when I look at Trey Lance, I just see the widest distribution curve in the entire NFL for
it's
a
nuts.
season. And because of that, the 49ers do have the widest distribution curve in the NFL as well. I mean, this team realistically could win anywhere between like 6 and 13 games, I feel
Yeah,
like,
yeah, very,
which
very
is
realistically.
crazy. Like the Rams aren't doing that. The Rams are winning like between 9 and 11 games, 9 and 12 games. Like this 49ers team is very weird, but I think it's one of the most exciting storylines in the league. Um, for sure. And before I say whether I'm gonna go over under, I just want to say Trey Lance, I have a kind of complicated relationship, I feel like, with I flip-flopped on him like 10 times, I'd say. Pre-draft process, I was like, this is future quarterback of Chicago Bears. He needs to be wearing number one right now in Soldier Field. And then you know, I started hearing some stuff, not doing as much of my own research, but I started hearing some stuff from people with data that I trust that his college data just wasn't that great. And that he's had bad competition with not great data. You can't really you shouldn't be drafting him over Fields. You shouldn't be drafting him over
Yeah,
I mean, I obviously Trevor Lawrence, Don up over Zach Wilson. And I think that's kind of what I stuck with for the past year, that he's the fourth best quarterback in this class and he's just got a crazy high ceiling.
yeah.
But I think this offseason, I've come around on him a little bit more. I think I think Shanahan is gonna be able to if his tools are gonna hit, I think Shanahan's gonna draw those tools out of him more than a lot of other play callers. I mean, like you mentioned, Shanahan is not really one to throw it deep every time. He's not. It's not like a Sean Payton offense.
Right.
It's gonna be a lot of quick throws, and that's why I mean Matt Ryan had a 96 PFF grade or not 96
And
in 2016,
MVP
but
season. Yeah.
yeah. I honestly would be tempted at saying Niners push at 9, but I'm gonna say over. I'm gonna buy the Trey Lance hype at least for the first 6 weeks. We'll talk about this again after week 6, and I will have a new verdict. It'll either be 49ers are NFC favorites, 49ers are winning 8 games, or Trey Lance is not good and they need to start looking at who the next quarterback
CJ
is.
Stroud time.
Yes. So now we've given a lot of airtime to Trey Lance, but obviously one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are so bullish on him is the system he's coming into is kind of like really as good as it gets outside of Shanahan weapon wise. Debo, you've got a good offensive line. I mean, let me check. Yeah, McGlinchey, Williams. I mean, it's a good place for a quarterback to be in. So what do you think? What do you think are some reasonable expectations for Ayuk and Debo and Kittle this season? Namely.
I mean, okay, so I drafted Debo with the eighth pick in my draft because I'm
Wow.
expecting him to get a lot of touches. I love Debo. I think he's great. I know he has that clause in his contract that like he gets like extra money like with rushing incentives.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason I drafted him. I was like, he's going to want to run. He's going to get a lot of carries. I think he might end up being like Shanahan has a new leading running back every single year. I don't know if it's going to be Debo, but I think he's going to get a lot of carries.
Hmm.
Elijah Mitchell's not healthy right now, so I don't know how that's going to go in terms of running backs. But they still have Trey Sermon, who they traded 2 picks for. They drafted Davis this year in the third round, so they have a lot of draft capital, which is one thing I think that they do really poorly. John Lynch does poorly is he overvalues running backs, especially when Shanahan can literally use like anyone, like Jeff Wilson had success. Um, I think Ayuk is. I think he's a really good wide receiver. It all depends on Trey Lance really. If is he gonna have that accuracy? He's on slants on anything really inside the numbers. He's high on a lot of passes, and it's gonna be interesting for to see how Shanahan uses that because if you're running a slant or a basic and your quarterback's high, that strong safety, that free safety is gonna intercept that. Like I mean, it's tipped up like that ball is intercepted every single time. So I think Ayuk probably breaks 1,000 yards. He is their wide receiver too. He's really good route runner. We all saw him absolutely destroy Trayvon Diggs. I think twice, just like destroy him. And when we talk about the NFC East, we can talk about Trayvon Diggs. Um, but I think that O line is like McGlinchey's good. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in football, but they lost Lincoln Tomlinson at right guard. I don't know if their interior is that good.
Yeah.
Be a good rushing team with a normal like inside zone running back. I think they're gonna have a lot more success having Debo be an outside zone like a toss guy where they can rely on Trent Williams's 99.9 run blocking grade to
Yeah.
kind of enable that offense. But it's just like Trey Lance is such a dark horse and such a big X factor in this entire offense that I mean, it was tough for me to pick Debo, but if Trey Lance is good, Debo is going to probably be one of the most efficient, have some of the best stats, including his rushing stats of amongst wide receivers and running backs alike, because he is both.
Yeah. I mean, you're not Debo is such a unicorn in the NFL. And I mean, I think we both wanted the Bears to try to go after him after he requested the
Yeah.
trade.
Every wide receiver this offseason.
Yeah.
Hopefully Justin
eh,
Jefferson is next.
yes, exactly. Jettas is coming next off season, but yeah, quick sidetrack. Yeah, the whole off season, Ilan and I were begging for a wide receiver for the Bears, and I think we were both a little bit more accepting of the lack of moves that the Bears made. But I mean, I remember after the Tyreek Hill trade, I was like, this guy pulls. Like he needs
I
to
remember how
get off
mad you
the
were.
hot. Yeah, I was pissed. But I've come to peace with no wide receiver one this offseason, regroup for next year. But anyways, back to the 49ers. Yeah, I mean, I've been high on Ayuk for a while. I think a lot of people have been. It's been hard though because last season was so bad. Very disappointing. And I think Brett Klarman's podcast, he mentioned that, Ayuk didn't really get a real off season last season and didn't know how to train
Yeah.
because of the COVID year. And so he came to camp, overweight, and Shanahan was pissed. So I think Ayuk with like a real NFL offseason could be very good. I mean, he's still, one of the better route runners to not really break onto the scene. Yeah, he's an athlete, exactly. Debo's an athlete, and I mean, Kittle's a monster. He's going to be, top three tight end, top three, four tight end. No matter what, he's one of those guys in the elite tier. So as we were going along here, I noticed some kind of similarities, I feel like, organizationally between the Rams and 49ers, especially between Shanahan and McVay. I think they're kind of two coaches on the same side of the coin.
Yeah.
They they're very good schematically. They get players open, but they're so weird with fourth downs. And like fourth downs are just like one of those things where it is free expected value. Like it is free probability points on your sides if you're making the right decision every time, but people can't get themselves to make the right decisions. But they're still and their draft processes, I think both of them are kind of weird. I mean, the 49ers, they've got draft capital usually, but they make weird trades, like you said, like trading for Sermon and then not using him at all in his first year. Like it just seems like there's not much reason sometimes when they're trying to be like mysterious and they know better than everybody else. But
Right,
I
exactly.
guess, yeah, I guess my question is, if you were to take one of these organizational models moving forward now, not factoring in like trying your best not to factor in Trey Lance, Matthew Stafford, but like which one of these team models do you think is more conducive to success?
Well, I mean, I really don't like the Rams model. I
Yeah.
don't really like the 49ers model either. But I guess I'd go with the 49ers. I kind of like the idea of trading draft capital to get a quarterback on a rookie deal more than trading the same amount of draft capital for a quarterback on whatever, 30 mil and then soon to be 40 mil. If I could go back in time, I think the easy pick for the 49ers, and I think they completely overthought it, should have just been Justin Fields. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, just like easily, if they would have had Justin Fields right now, they would have been a lot better last year. I mean, I truly, and I'm sure this is coming from a biased perspective. I think if Justin Fields went anywhere else, like if the Patriots traded up for him or if the 49ers took him, like he would be at the end of this year, like undoubtedly a top 10 quarterback. Like undoubtedly. Like I think he is that talented, but I'm not sure he's in the best situation in Chicago to show all that this year. So I mean, I like the idea of you trade if you're gonna trade picks, trade it for a quarterback who can reach if they reach their 75th or 85th percentile, it's gonna probably win you a Super Bowl. Like I mean, that's just how Trey Lance is gonna work. Matthew Stafford probably had to reach like his like 95th percentile season, and still they needed the best roster in football to win the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the 49ers model. Um, I liked the Browns model more. A
Yeah.
year ago until they
Same.
traded for Deshaun. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't lie. I kind of like what the Bears are doing.
Yeah.
Too. That's a model at this moment that I'm kind of a fan of in the early stages. But we need another offseason to really see where they go with that.
Yeah. I mean, not to bring it back to the Bears again, but
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking like I feel like the Bears done a much better job at getting back to zero than a team like the Giants or something. Because you don't want Gettleman contracts on your team. You just want to start from zero, and starting from zero is a great model to have.
yep. Down to
Um, but
27
yeah,
pole or pace players from 77.
my God, that's the dream. Um, but yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you. I think the 49ers have a better model than the Rams. I think these are both teams that get a little bit more credit for being smart than they actually are.
Yeah, for sure.
I think some casual NFL fans would maybe even look at these two as kind of like the forefront of smart teams in the NFL and like kind of like their own mini rivalry. But I mean, and obviously they traded for Deshaun Watson, but like Ravens Browns is a much more tight and like high class organizational beef
For sure.
between two teams in the same division. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, both these teams are constantly making the right decisions. I mean, if you just go look at the decisions in the past 5 years with the Rams and Ravens versus the Rams, or sorry, with the Ravens and Browns versus the Rams and 49ers, like you're gonna see like the Ravens trading back, they're always making the right picks. The Rams and 49ers don't do that. They don't always make the right pick. They don't always make the right on-field decision. Schematically, they've probably got some better minds, but like John Harbaugh, I think is probably the best like CEO type coach in the league.
yeah,
Like,
sure.
yeah, he's one of my favorites, and I mean has been for a while.
He's
But
great.
yeah, okay. So wrapping up here on the 49ers, do you think, suppose Lance hits his X percentile, do you think this team this year has a chance of winning the Super Bowl?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, for sure. I mean, they were really close last year. I mean, they upgraded corner wise. Tre'Davious Ward's great. I mean, like, yeah, if Trey Lance hits, as you said, whatever high percentile, for sure they can win the Super Bowl this year.
yeah. I would 100% be inclined to agree. I think I think this team has all the answers except quarterback. And if they figure out they've got the right answer, it'll quickly. I mean, I think there's a world where every other NFC team is looking at the 49ers and just realizing they are not on the same level. And I don't know how likely that is, but I think it's more likely than a lot of other teams in the
Oh
NFC
yeah.
this year.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I don't see any world where the Packers are clearly far and away better than every other team.
No.
Well, actually, I should knock on wood. Um, but yeah, I think this 49ers team can play with the big dogs in the NFC for sure, especially with the Devontae-less Packers and, with a banged up Buccaneers crew. All right. So those are the two more exciting teams in the division, I'd say. I think the race to the winning the NFC West is going to be between these two. But the kind of wild card in this division is definitely the Arizona Cardinals, whose win total is currently set at 8.5. So what do you think about 8.5?
Really tough one. I mean, they don't have D Hop for 6 games. Their defense is solid, but like Hollywood is nowhere near D Hop. Uh, I like 8.5 is like I think they win either 8 or 9 games.
Yeah.
Um, I think I really do like Kyler. Like
Mhm.
he is like I think he's kind of underrated by a lot of NFL fans who think he's like closer to Kirk Cousins than he really is.
Mhm.
So I'll go over, but I think they might just go barely over. Like I would nine. I could see 9 or 10 wins. I could also see 7 wins, 7 or 8 wins. So I will go over, because I went under on the 49ers, and I kind of think like in the division it'll kind of work out that way. But they're an interesting team. They took an off-ball linebacker last year in the first round, and Zaven Collins. Yeah, my thoughts on that. Don't like that. For this year, they traded their first round pick for a wide receiver that's going to get paid soon, who's not very good. They might have extended him actually. I'm not sure. But D Hop is a game changer. And once Hollywood comes back, he's a really good wide receiver too. Or once D Hop
Mhm.
comes back, Hollywood's a really good wide receiver too. They added Rodney Hudson. Um, maybe that was no, that was last year. But he's still one of the top centers. Was that
Yeah.
last year? Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, he's still one of the top centers. So they're a pretty good, not great team. So I'll go over.
Not to be contrarian, but I think for the third time we're gonna disagree here. I'm gonna go under. Um, I'm not big on this Cardinals team. I think if you're it's kind of like a little brother thing with the 49ers and the Rams, where it's like I feel like the Cardinals looking up to these two guys like for the past, God, I mean, almost 10 years. And just like every year they can't beat them. They can't get over them. And I mean, obviously the Seahawks had the reign of dominance too, but I feel like if you're like the Cardinals and you're looking at the 49ers and Rams, you're kind of like, you're copying what they're doing and you're looking and you're trying to maybe steal some of their tactics. But the tough part is I think the Rams, even though the Rams and 49ers, even though not all their tactics are my favorite, I think they have pretty smart people making the decisions for the most part, at least. I don't know if that's the case for the Cardinals.
No, it definitely is not.
I think, yeah, I think they're looking at the Rams and 49ers and just trying their best to kind of copy. I mean, obviously not copy their whole model, but let's trade our first rounder for Marquise Brown. Let's draft an off-ball linebacker in the first round. Like, who cares about positional value? You're not going to win like that. Um, and credit to the Cardinals because they have Kyler Murray. Like they have someone who has at least the ceiling of being a top five quarterback. Not many players have the ceiling of that. And it's a reasonable year in and year out, which is good. Which I mean, the Kyler contract was a lot of money for him for not a lock top five quarterback every year.
Right,
But
right, yes, but you got to pay him.
yeah, you're giving yourself a chance at a top five quarterback every year, which is good enough, which is what you want.
Right.
And I do I think big credit to the Cardinals from I mean, and this is obviously years ago, but moving off Josh Rosen so quickly and drafting Kyler Murray, like I think one of the biggest mistakes every single sports organization makes is just they can't own up to their mistakes.
Agree. So,
You've probably seen it. I mean, you can think of any of your favorite teams and think of a player they've stuck with too long. Like
so
they
Trubisky.
can't. Yes, Mitch. I mean, God, I could name the entire White Sox roster. Anyone. but you have to be willing to own up to your mistakes. And I think, okay, look, if I'm an owner, I'm looking at a front office that's willing to admit they were wrong, like with the greatest. I don't care if they're making the wrong decisions. If they know they're making the wrong decisions and learning from them, like that's feedback. That's what you want. You don't want to get stuck in this cycle of I'm like, Bill Belichick, I'm so good at this that I'm not going to switch up my process, that I'm going to constantly make negative EV decisions year in and year out. Like it makes sense because you're Bill Belichick and you don't want to mess up what you've created. But if you're a team like the Cardinals, you have to be willing to own up to it. And so yeah, I think Kyler is good. I do really like him. I have my qualms about Cliff. I think he's a little bit 99 minutes 99 cent store McVay and Shanahan. I'm gonna say they have a Hard Knocks coming out mid-season, and I'm really excited to watch that
You?
because yeah, it's like the Colts from last year. That's gonna be really interesting to watch because I don't know how Cliff and Kyler get along. I mean, this is
That
one of
is,
the weirder
yeah.
this is one of the weirder teams in the league at this point, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm really not a big fan of Cliff Kingsbury at all. Like I think Tyler is better than what people give him credit for because he has to deal with Cliff Kingsbury. But I think you brought up a really good point. Steve Heim, who I don't think is a great GM, he made a really good decision when he was like Rosen, like is clearly not it. And you can say whatever about Rosen not having his fair share of chance. Coming in his first appearance was against 2018 Bears defense with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like, are you
I
serious?
remember that game. I thought we
Um,
were gonna lose that game.
oh yeah, we were now 13-0, came back, and Josh Rosen gave us the game away. But like I mean, that's like impossibly like hard with no talent on the roster. But Kyler Murray's created, obviously worked out. There's a lot of teams I think should have done that. Um, I think Tua and Jalen Hurts are two really good examples of quarterbacks that I don't think will ever turn into something. But I kind of do get it because this year the quarterback class wasn't great. Um, so there wasn't really anybody to draft. If Tua is the quarterback for the Dolphins again, and they're not very good next year, and they have whatever pick in the draft, because I think they still have two firsts. I still think they have the 49ers pick. So if they
Oh yeah.
if they can't move up and get a young Stroud, a Tyler Van Dyke, whoever's will leave it, whoever's up there, like they need to move on. Like if Tua's not like clearly the answer, he's never going to be after this year. So they need to move on, and I don't know if they're going to. But teams, like you said, they don't own up to their mistakes. They try for the smallest bit of chance that Mitch Trubisky can be good in year 4.
It's the sunk cost fallacy. You think because you've already made a bad decision, it's in your best interest to continue and hold with that bad decision instead of
Mhm.
moving on to the right decision. Um, but yeah, I mean, with Tua, I feel like at this point we're kind of good enough at modeling the NFL year in and year out that if you have a quarterback on a rookie deal and they have had two really crappy years, you've almost got enough information to
Oh yeah,
know they're not going to be
for sure.
good. And everybody and their mom is going to point out Josh Allen, but Josh Allen is like such the exception and not the rule.
And
Like,
Tua is like
and
nowhere near
someone
as physically gifted as
no,
Josh.
like they could not be farther opposites of quarterbacks. Like
Right.
this, anyone who tries to like unironically compare Tua to Josh Allen it's just they're just looking for causation, and you just need to stop listening to them.
They're just dumb.
Yeah. I think someone like Trey Lance is actually maybe a little bit more like Josh Allen, where I'd be inclined to give him a third year just because
For sure.
if it's like his tools haven't hit in the first 2 years, like I want that third year to know for sure if
Same
if
with
the
Field.
tools are not. Yeah. Yeah, and with Fields too. I'd totally give Fields a third year, especially because he's been in such a crappy situation and will be for a second year too.
Yeah.
Um, but with a lot of these guys, I mean, I'd be willing to move off a lot of them after 2 years, I think. To Daniel Jones is a tough one, but I would think about it at least. But like people, I think the tough part for a lot of fans is they don't realize that you're literally setting years of a rookie contract on fire like every year that you do that. And like a rookie quarterback contract is the most valuable thing you can have in sports. Like you are getting way plus what you were paying for in terms of war. I mean, not to bring it back to baseball again, but like if you just like look at what baseball teams play for a win above replacement, and then you look at what NFL teams pay for win above replacement, and then you look at what NFL teams with a quarterback on rookie contract are paying for each win above replacement for that quarterback, it's like it's
Oh yeah.
mind they're getting more value for each dollar than any other organization in sports when they every time their quarterback, the rookie quarterback goes and has a great season.
Right.
Like this is why you should not be scared to move off your quarterback because if you get 5 years of a new rookie deal. So take that. Um, and okay, back to the Cardinals. I you touched on Hollywood a little bit. I mean, that was a bad trade. Hollywood Brown is not. I mean,
Mm.
Hollywood Brown is good. He's good, but you're just trying to you're just grasping at straws here. You're trying to make Kyler happy. You're trying to make your fan base a little bit more excited. You're trying to maybe win a couple more games next season, but it's all at the risk of the future of your team. Um, and look, I mean, Hollywood could very well shut me up and have a great season, but it's just a bad process. And you should look at the process, not the results.
Oh,
So I don't think it's unfair for anybody to criticize the Cardinals for that trade, like a lot in the media rightfully have done. I don't think many were huge fans of that trade, especially when the Eagles went and got AJ Brown for what? I mean,
18? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think it was, yeah.
if the Cardinals would have got AJ Brown, I'd be all over this
I think it was
offseason. I mean,
18. Maybe the Eagles got a third too. Maybe they gave up a third too. Regardless, AJ Brown
it
is worlds
was like
better than Hollywood.
yeah, and the prices were like well within where you just
Yeah.
choke up the extra third or whatever,
Right.
for sure. So yeah, I think, and with the D Hop suspension, this offense is just it's not as explosive as it was last year. I mean, it doesn't have it's not as likely to be as explosive. Um, so what do you think? Do you think this team is somewhat of a contender, or do you think they're gonna fall into irrelevancy by week 10 or 12?
I know what you think. I know you think they're gonna be irrelevant by week 10. I'm a little bit higher on them, just a
Mhm.
tad, where I think they can. I think Kyler is good enough and can be good enough where, Cliff Kingsbury is like very notorious for like his second half fall off. So by week 10 or 12, like I think they can still be, and I know that has no causation. I know that's fully correlation based for now that Cliff Kingsbury falls off after whenever. But it happens every year, and by week 10 or 12, I think they can still be relevant, but I do not think they make the playoffs. I think they miss out at like 9-8.
Yeah. I mean, I do think I think at worst this team is probably fighting for a wild card spot by like week 15, 14. I think they probably fall out of it by week 16, 17, but the team is good enough to at least be a storyline. And they're gonna they have enough talent and Kyle, you're right. Kyler's very good. Um, and he's very young too. So I mean, he's only had 3 seasons in the league, and obviously it's hard to. I mean, you do have enough information on someone at that point to I think reasonably expect they're going to be good. But Kyler's kind of weird. He could be better than what we saw last year. I do think. Even though I mean he was the MVP favorite for at least the first what 9 weeks. But yeah, I think I doubt this team makes the playoffs. I mean, I'd be even more surprised if they did anything exciting in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, no,
I
no way.
yeah, I think most likely they're going to be on the outside looking in from a wild card spot, but they can they can do it. They can do it. I wouldn't be shocked. All right, and now moving on to the final team in the division. This is kind of a sad one. The Seattle Seahawks. It's been about as depressing of an offseason, I feel like. Not even like, and this is like totally just the fan Luke speaking, not, try like from a front office perspective, like, oh my God, what like to see Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner leave in the same offseason is just like heartbreaking. Like that was your team. Like that was the best Seahawks team ever. And you're seeing the leader of the offense, the leader of the defense. I mean, well, I think Richard Sherman in his prime was way better, but you're seeing these guys leave in the same season off season. Like that's so depressing. And I don't know. Okay, their win totals at 5.5. What do you think about that?
I I don't I think this is gonna be the first one we agree on. I'm gonna go under 5.5. I think they're really bad. Uh Drew Lock had his chance in Denver. He was good for those like 4 games in his rookie year and then came back. I mean, he's not good. Um I extra hate them and I don't feel bad for them because they extended DK and did not
Yeah,
trade him
yeah,
to the
true.
Bears. So but DK is great. Lockett's pretty good. They've done a solid job building. I mean, they spent a second round pick, I think it was, on Dwayne Eskridge last year. There's picks like I don't really understand that well. I think Charles Cross was actually really good. Um, they have I think Abraham Lucas, right tackle. So they have their tackles. But other than that, like I mean, they're not very talented. They're not good on really either side of the ball. I mean, their first team most of it played against the Bears on preseason, so we kind of got like a closer look at them. They're awful. Like, I mean,
Bad.
so bad, so bad. I mean, they kind of have like Puna Ford inside, who's not bad, but other than that, they lack talent. I could see them winning 3 games. The division's like, I mean, not easy, but um, I mean, sorry, it's not hard, but it's not easy. So I don't. If they're gonna win a game in the division, maybe one, maybe two.
Yeah.
I mean, they're divisional games, so they have a lot more variance. But uh, yeah, I mean, I think they're doing a fine job building for their next quarterback, though. Like, I mean, they have their 2 tackles, they have 2 wide receivers at least, maybe a third they can find. Noah Fant is a pretty good tight end. So if they bring in a Stroud, a Young, a whoever, like I mean, I think that's a pretty good spot um, in the future for a quarterback. But yes, under this year.
Yes, this is the first we're gonna agree on here. I'm gonna have to go under on this team too. I think
Oh,
I'm I, I I don't know how much lower you can be on the consensus um on lock. Or I don't know how much lower than the consensus you can be on lock, but I think I'm lower than the consensus on him. I mean, he's really bad.
yeah,
He's
he's
really bad. He should not be a starter. He should not be playing.
it's
And
true.
at least Locke is the funniest of I think the young quarterbacks because like all the young quarterbacks, there's at least like something you were like hanging on to. It was like, Tua, oh, he's like, quote unquote the most accurate pass in the league, which I mean that's just not fair. But Daniel Jones, like, oh, he's kind of dual threat, like he's got a big arm. Like you've got like at least somewhat, I mean, it depends, it's a case by case basis, but you've got some valid reasons to hang on to them. I mean, Drew Lock has had like no redeeming qualities in his time in the NFL. Like I think people sometimes might think he's like a gunslinger or something. This guy has like one of the lowest big time play rates in the league. Like he doesn't throw it well deep. He's just bad. He's terrible and he turns the ball over. But I, you know, the more I look at this team, the more I think they're in a really good position for quarterback moving forward. And I think if they just embrace the tank this year, I mean, I'll get to Pete Carroll in a second, but if they're able to just, you know, not care about losing 15 games and they lock up Stroud or Young, like if you have Stroud and Lockett and DK, and I mean, I think Charles Cross is one of the best tackles from this past draft class. He's very, very good. And Abraham Lucas, like you said, he's looking really good. Like you have 2 tackles, 2 good receivers, and Noah Fant, a high drafted tight end. You've got a body there. You've got something to
Right.
work with. And if you throw Stroud Young in there and maybe sign like some guys on the interior offensive line or like another receiver, like you you're putting your quarterback in a good position to win. So I think I commend the Seahawks for doing what's right for them over the next 4 or 5 seasons. They've made the right decisions, I think, at least this past off season, large in part. Now, onto Pete Carroll. I'm very low on Pete Carroll. I don't think Pete Carroll is very good. I think he had a very, very great 2013 draft class, and it has carried his name for 9 years. Um, I think he's one of the worst on-field decision makers.
100%.
He's he's not that forward thinking. I mean, there is something to be said about someone who I'd imagine has so much respect and like is probably able to command the locker room very well. I do think that has value, but I think it's doing you more harm than good when he's also consistently making the wrong decisions.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think I think give it give it a year. This team will be looking to be in a much better position for the time moving forward. But this season, this team is not very good.
Yeah, I agree with the Pete Carroll thing. I mean, I don't even know. Was he like, did he come as a defensive specialist or something? I don't remember, but he was a coach at USC.
Yeah,
He came to the Seahawks. Like, I mean, I one of my biggest things I hate about the NFL is like running the ball. Like
yeah,
I hate running the ball. I think it's the dumbest thing ever. So and he's like huge, like run the football. Like you have Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Doug Baldwin, and all these great receivers for the longest time. And here you are, like running the ball post Marshawn Lynch. Like I don't get it. With your always battle line, like your whoever running, but like whatever they had, because they kept having injuries. Like Chris Carson wasn't very good. He's not even on a team, I don't think anymore. Um, Chris Carson,
yeah. I think he retired.
yeah, that might be right. But yeah, Pete Carroll at fourth down wise is really bad too. Like he's got this like old head philosophy. Um, you know, Thankfully we have the Brandon Staley's now in the NFL, who I think, and not right now. People probably think it's crazy, but by the end of the year, we'll be a top three head coach. Um, but Yeah, Pete Carroll, it's time to go. Like, I mean, he blocked the Russell Wilson trade to the Bears because he wanted one last like chance, and they went 7-10, and then they traded him to Denver for probably less than the
Yeah,
Bears offered it.
their offer was supposed to be huge.
Yeah, thankfully, because I don't, well, I don't know, I don't really want to discuss
It's
Russell Wilson, but you know,
yeah,
I'm happy with Justin Fields.
me too. I think you're giving yourself 4 years of Justin Fields on a rookie deal, and you're punting one last year away, but you have to start winning next year. And if you try to start winning next year, you're in a good position to win. So
Yeah,
that's all you can hope for from the Bears. But yeah, I mean, closing up on the NFC West, and the Seahawks, I think this, if I were to guess, this division probably shakes out to look like 49ers first, 11 wins. I'd say Rams second, 10 wins. Cardinals third, 7 wins.
okay.
No, seven's low. I'll do seven. I'll do seven. I'll be a hater. And I'll do Seahawks at 4.
Okay, I think it goes something like, I think the Rams go 12-5. I think the Cardinals go 9-8. The
Wow.
Niners go 8-9, and
Wow.
Seahawks go like, yeah, 4-13.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get I don't really like I'm really not a fan of Trey Lance at all. So,
Yeah.
but I
I
mean, he could definitely prove me wrong. Like many quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, to name one, have done
God.
so. So
Thank God we did not have a podcast during Justin Herbert's rookie season because those takes
oh,
would
that's right.
be terrible for me right now. Oh my goodness. Um, but
Mike got
yeah,
suspended, so no one could
closing
ever
up.
see.
Yeah, that is the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We had a great time as always. And next week we'll be doing the NFC South. So get to get to tell you guys how much I love Tom Brady for a little bit. Take care.
Bye.